What's going on, everybody? My name is Status, and welcome to episode 4 of Sacrifice for the Stinger Bars. This is a show designed to celebrate the hustlers, go-getters, and trendsetters, and shine a light on their journey of struggles and pitfalls that they overcame to reach their ideal of success through the knowledge of self and will to do for self. This is our special Father's Day edition entitled Black Fathers Matter. I am humbled to have some amazing Black fathers on here today. Each of these brothers is dear to my heart. They've affected my life in a positive way. So I'm honored to have them on, and I just want to give each of them their flowers while they live. So in no particular order, bear through me as I give an introduction for each of the brothers that I have on today. I'm going to start with Terrence Hill. He was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania, with family heritage to the native indigenous Blackfoot tribe. He is a certified dental technician and resides between Lancaster, Pennsylvania and Phoenix, Arizona. Currently, he is employed as a dental technology specialist for the company Dentsply Sirona Kenna and has been there for 25 years. For 31 years, he has been involved with the 12-Step Fellowship and is a 28-year certified addictions counselor. Brother Terry is a father of 3 biracial children, his oldest being his stepson, one biological son who he tragically lost to senseless gun violence, and his youngest, a daughter. He is also grandfather to my 2 amazing daughters, so I am deeply grateful he agreed to be here today. Everybody welcome Brother Terry.
Thank you.
Eric, what's going on, brother?
All right. Thank you.
The next on my list is Brother Demetrice McClurkin. He was born in Union, South Carolina, and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is the youngest of fraternal twins and was raised by a single mother who moved their family to Philly for opportunities at a better life. His educational journey includes his undergraduate degree at Georgetown University and an MBA degree at Indiana University, Bloomington. Brother Meach is currently Vice President of Finance at Procter & Gamble, North America Personal Care Business, which includes Old Spice, Secret Native, Olay, Safeguard, and Ivory. He is a husband to the love of his life, Shannon, for 15 wonderful years, and father of 2 boys, Demetrius Jr. and Dorian, who is age 4 and 10. Brother Demetrius is also a lifetime member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Everybody, welcome Brother Demetrius to the line.
Good evening, brothers. Good evening. What's going on?
I'll come back there. Okay, the next on the list, like I said, no particular order, is Brother Thomas Tizz 215 Ames. He is a multifaceted entertainer and social media influencer who specializes in sketch comedy, music writing and performance, acting, directing, and screenplay writing, to just name a few. He was born in Southwest Philadelphia and rose to stardom through independent films on YouTube. Brother Thomas is now producing 2 major feature films to be released tentatively in 2021 and is gearing up to release his debut album. Brother Tizz is father to 3 amazing children, 2 boys and 1 girl, all of different mothers, and recently became engaged to his longtime close friend and companion, Tamia. With a thriving, successful career, he still sees his greatest accomplishments as being a good father to his children. Everybody, welcome Tizz 215 to the chat.
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, fellas? What's going on? What's going on?
What's up?
Yes.
Man, what's up?
Yo.
What's up,
Next
dog?
on my list is Brother Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. He is an NBA superstar who currently plays for the Toronto Raptors. He was born and raised in Chester, Pennsylvania. His educational background includes Chester High School and the University of Arizona. Brother Rondae is a single father to an amazing 1-year-old son and is practicing a healthy co-parenting arrangement. Everyone welcome Rondae Hollis-Jefferson to the chat.
Rondae.
Yo.
What's up,
Look
everybody?
at him.
Next on my list is Kenneth E Johnson, MBA. He is a West Philadelphia native who is a retired sergeant, first class with the U.S. Army, a successful business owner and man of God, a husband, a father, and a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. In addition, Brother Kenny is minister at Higher Ground Church International. He wears many hats and all involve training others, whether it is spiritually, mentally, fraternally, or financially. Of all the hats he wears, his favorite role is that of being a father. Everybody, welcome Brother Kenny to the chat.
Kenny,
Hey, how you doing?
Kenny?
What up, everybody?
What's up,
the light skin bull.
Our second Brother Kenny is my business partner, Kenneth Hilliard. He was born and raised in West Philadelphia and is a product of a single-parent household. His mother is a strong Black queen who raised him and his two siblings, brother and sister, to be responsible, hard-working hustlers. Brother Kenny is a proud construction worker who belongs to Local 401 Philadelphia's Iron Workers Union. Brother Hilliard also is a serial entrepreneur in the entertainment industry, and owner of a thriving nightlife and special event promotions company in Philadelphia called Capital Empire. Among his great accomplishments, he values nothing more than being a great dad. He is a single full-time father with full custody of his beautiful 5-year-old daughter, a narrative that you don't hear about in the media much in respects to Black fathers. Everybody, welcome Kenny number 2 to the chat.
The other light skinned Kenny. What's up, Kenny?
Yo, what's going on? What's going on?
What's up, bro?
The next is very dear to me. Is my cousin and mentor, Ishmael Iben-Malik. Ishmael Iben-Malik was born and raised in Chester, Pennsylvania, with heritage in the island of Barbados. He is married to Anissa Noordine Malik and currently living in the state of New Jersey. He is a father of 5 children, Zalea, Ayana, Nasir, Zakia, and Nyla. One of his many passions and priorities is self-care. He is a certified fitness trainer and lifestyle coach who started his own business known as Pure Impact in 2016. Welcome, Brother Ish, to the chat, brothers.
What's going on, brother?
What's going on, good brothers?
Baby?
I'm good, beloved.
Next on the list, I could talk about this brother all day. This is my childhood best friend, Conrad Simmons. He was born in Sharon Hill, Pennsylvania, Darby Township, and raised in Chester, Pennsylvania. He currently resides in PG County, Maryland, and works in Washington, D.C. for Children's Hospital. He's the youngest of 4 boys who have all had great impacts on his life. He is a married man and father of 2 amazing children, 1 boy and 1 girl. His educational journey includes Willis Charter High School of Chester, Pennsylvania, Widener University, where he graduated class of 2008 with a BS in psychology, and St. Joseph's University of Philadelphia, PA, a master's in healthcare administration. Brother Conrad is also a member of the most noble Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Everybody, welcome Conrad to the chat.
Conrad, what's going on, Conrad?
What up, baby? Yo.
And now I get to introduce another person very dear to me. This is my father, who is joined in. Brother Lamount Muhammad, formerly Lamont X Belgrave, was born and raised in Chester, Pennsylvania by his mother and grandparents in a strong West Indian culture household, as his grandfather was a native of the island of Barbados. He's a devoted and lifelong follower of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Honorable Louis Farrakhan, and member of the Nation of Islam and the Fruit of Islam. He's retired from a career in accounting and is now enjoying spending his free time with family, practicing Islam, and on occasions Ubering and lifting to stay sharp with his hustle. He is the father of 7 children, his oldest girl to be of a previous marriage, 2 sons and 3 daughters to his current wife and love of his life, and youngest surrogate child raising his deceased sister's son who passed away giving birth to him. I happen to be that child. It's an honor and privilege and pleasure to have my father here today in the show. Everybody give Lamount Muhammad shout out.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Cousin.
Hey, Pop, you got 7 kids, Pop. I know you got a lot to talk about tonight.
Last but surely not least, I wanted to invite someone who can speak from a professional setting on everything that we're going to discuss today. So we have someone who's also a father himself, and first and foremost, I want to say happy anniversary to him and his wife, and him taking the time to be with us during his anniversary. Please thank that sister. We might be sending some flowers her way from Sacrifices Thing of Ours, but allow us to take up that time. We have Alphonso Nathan. He's an MS in LPC and is currently the vice president of a private counseling practice called Brightside Counseling, LLC, and is the co-owner of a psychiatric practice called Brightside Medical Associates. Alphonso obtained his undergraduate degree in psychology at Bloomsburg University. Brother Alphonso obtained his graduate degree in clinical and counseling psychology at Chestnut Hill College. Alphonso also attended the Milton Hershey School, which is a boarding school for at-risk youth. Because of his versatile background, Alphonso has taken specialties in many areas, including helping individuals deal with depression, anxiety, anger management, life coaching, spectrum-based disorders, as well as sports psychology. As well as sports psychology. Alphonso is also a motivational speaker and co-author of an upcoming book for therapists wanting to go into private practice called Practice Success: Steps for Building and Maintaining a Successful Private Practice. Alphonso's purpose here today, again, is to help give a psychological understanding of the Black father's journey through stigma and reality. Everybody, welcome Brother Alphonso to the show.
Welcome. What's up, man?
So we're gonna jump right in. Everybody was able to get the questions a little bit beforehand. Intentionally, I did this. I want to talk to my following. I didn't want to send the questions too early because I want this to be barbershop talk. I want this to be us really delving in and not being prepared for the answers, but speaking from the heart. Like I told the brothers before we got on, I want to thank everybody who submitted questions. Usually me and my producer come up with the questions for the show, but this time I wanted the audience to ask the questions. So I reached out on social media and said, send us questions you would want to ask a Black father, and the response was amazing. I received over 300 questions from women as well as men who are not fathers yet, who wanted some answers in what fatherhood was like. Some of the questions were a little racy, and I just want to tell the audience who submitted them, if you don't see a question answered today, it's either because we ran out of time, I felt it didn't apply to this conversation as dealing with Black fathers, or it was just a little bit too racy for this type of conversation, but I wanted to stay real. So the questions we asked today, our sisters held no punches, and I'm going to give it to you guys straight, no chaser. We're going to have a conversation again. I want brothers to be able to answer the questions as truthfully and honestly as you feel comfortable answering. Don't feel you have to answer every question, but let's limit each answer to 2 minutes so we can get in as many questions answered as possible. So let's jump right in. I want to start off with the first topic of questions. Advice to future dads. What's the hardest part about fatherhood versus the most rewarding? Anybody choose to answer?
I guess I'll go. Hey, so one of the things I say, the hardest part about fatherhood is not having a model. My dad was arrested most of my life. And so, you're trying to put a puzzle together that you never saw. But the most rewarding thing is actually the flip side of that, knowing that you have an opportunity to change future generations because of what you do. So, for me, it was more, hey, learn from the lessons of the things that you disliked, and then make sure with my kids, teaching them the things my mistakes, and teaching the things that I did right. And so, it was the most rewarding thing. But the hardest part was not having a model to go from.
Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah, the hardest part for me was dealing with my children's mothers, the grandparents. You know, that was the hardest part, because we came from different backgrounds. It kind of undermined, they were trying to undermine, you know, me as a father when I was younger. I guess they took a lot into my age and thought that because of my age that they could run our household. So that was the hardest part, and the most rewarding part was to give my children what I didn't have. You know, my father was murdered when I was 12, so like Brother Ken spoke about, it was trial and error for me to be a father, and to become a father and be able to give my children everything that I missed out on. That has been the most rewarding part.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I agree on that. I'm gonna jump in there as well. Hardest part is knowing that you're gonna mess up from time to time. You know what I mean? And me being, you know, I'm a therapist for kids as well, and me knowing like, okay, if I do this, I know where this path can lead. So it just creates so much anxiety that, you know, you try to be the perfect person, but just knowing that, you know, there are gonna be times you're gonna mess up, but you know, just learning from that is gonna be the key. The most rewarding thing is, you know, having a legacy, man. I'm a big believer that success is leaving a legacy behind that you're proud of, and I think that you know, having children is that main thing for having a successful legacy. So that's you know, you leave with something that, you know, when you go, that a part of you is still here. So that's a rewarding thing.
Somebody else want to answer?
Yeah, I was going to say, Nidir, probably for me, the hardest part is not feeling prepared to really be ready to be a father. Be ready mentally, be ready physically, be ready financially, you know, career-wise, etc. Feeling that I had to be perfect heading in, as the brother said, you know, earlier. That was the hardest part. And because you have that fear, and also coming back in, like the other gentlemen have said, coming from not having that perfect example, so therefore trying to look for too much that what I can bring, to be over prepared. The most rewarding part is the unconditional love that your children bring you every single day. There's no one else like that, you know, in any relationship that I've had, you know, where someone is looking for you to shape them and mold them and will love you regardless, because they don't have that history of you. They only know you from that point forward. And so to me, that is the most rewarding part coming out of it.
All right, so I'll step in. I say the hardest part for me was I always had a dad around, but I didn't have a father around. If y'all get what I'm saying. Like I lived with my dad. He was there. He did things for me, but he wasn't really a father to the point where to show me how to be a man, or show me how to love. Like, I couldn't look at our situation and use what I learned from him as of now with my kids, as far as like just knowing the importance of being a father and not just a dad. Like far as like separating the two. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it's like with that, like, I really grew up like not really knowing like the love that a child and a father should have. So which made it for me, like when I had my kids, I promised myself that I was going to just be more than just a dad. I was going to be a father, as far as just being there for them and just talking to them, like just getting to know them and spending time with them, and not really focus on the materialistic things. So like the best thing that I got out of that was just like my kids taught me, they taught me how to love. They taught me how to like wanted me to, they made me want to be a better father. You get what I'm saying?
All right. I can step in for this too. The hardest part for me was like moving fast, not picking the right female to make the mother of my child. Like, you know, like us young people, we move kind of fast. I mean, think everything glitters gold. I mean, that one drunk night could be a real big mistake. So that's kind of the hard part. That was the hard part for me. But the most rewarding part is like me and my daughter, we like Bonnie and Clyde. Like that she have like all the brothers was saying. It's like the love that you get from your kids is unconditional, and that's the most rewarding for me.
Anybody else want to chime in for that question? Beautiful. Thank you, brothers. Next on the list, Which family member have you modeled your fatherhood skills after, and why? I'll go.
What was the question? What was the question?
Which family member have you modeled your fatherhood skills after, and why? Okay, so I'll go first. Really, honestly, my father. One thing that I always had growing up was a sense of conviction, a sense of purpose, and a sense of speaking your truth. So that's why I work to instill in my daughters. I know you all know recently, I went through a very turbulent time in my life where I was falsely accused of a crime and was facing 3 to 6 years. Because of the teachings that my father instilled in me, I stood my ground and refused to plead out to something that I didn't do. And I ended up, of course, being fully exonerated because of my conviction. But it was a hard trial leading up to that for myself. And we went through, as a family, a lot of financial turmoil and stress. They drained me down to a point where it did go in the back of my mind to just take a plea deal and try to make it go away. But because of convictions my father instilled in me, I couldn't allow myself to lie on myself. And those convictions have followed me through my life and everything that I've done. Standing up to truth, speaking truth, not just to power, but regardless of the circumstance. So my fathership style has been here to me, making sure that I instill this in my daughters so they can operate in their life the same way. And I'm very grateful for him for that.
Very good. Very nice.
Move on to the next question.
I can jump in on that one real quick. I'm a big, I go by quotes and stuff like that just to kind of keep things, in my mind. And one of my quotes is, a smart man learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And so with that, I learned that from my father. I learned from my father what not to do. You know what I mean? My father was that playboy and just not present. And so I wanted to make sure that I would do the opposite with my kids, make sure that I'm being present. Even if because I'm extremely busy just because of the businesses that I run. I'm about quality time over quantity. So when I'm there, I'm present. You know what I'm saying? I'm engaged, and for kids, it's so much. It means so much to them when you are engaged. It doesn't matter if you're there for 10 hours or just 2 hours. If it's 2 hours and you're really engaged with your kids, they remember that for a long period of time. You know what I mean? So I just learned from the mistakes of the individuals that I saw, the moves that they were making. Like I was like, I can't make those moves because I'm trying to break these generational curses, and that's the model that us as a new generation of Black men and we're trying to push through.
Got you. She's Black.
What was the hardest adjustment with becoming a father, each of you?
Okay, knock.
Well, Status.
Yes.
Can you say the question one more time for me?
Oh, yes. What was the hardest adjustment with becoming a father? I actually start unless you were ready to go.
You go ahead.
For me was time management, being able to balance the time with my children and my actual career. One thing I always valued myself before becoming a father was the same code I use for this show, sacrificing for this thing of ours. But we gotta realize what this thing of ours is. For me, it was my career, and I put everything aside for my career, relationships, family, friends. Nothing in my life came before my career. And I remember actually a conversation with my best friend Conrad, who's on here. He can bear witness to this. That conversation in Maryland about life as we know it. And this is before I was a father. He was settling in. His grades were coming in. I'm making a joke. He said, "You don't got a grade in here because you don't have kids. You don't have that responsibility." I always pride myself on being a responsible person, but until I became a father, I didn't really know what responsibility was. So I've completely adjusted my lifestyle and how I move, and now my children have become my #1 priority over my career, which has affected my career in a lot of ways. I'm no longer active in nightlife because I felt that it was a detriment to me as a father. So I've adjusted and started other businesses and transitioned myself into different worlds so I could be that father that I needed to be. So that's my response. Anybody else?
I mean, my main response was just basically was just me having kids before I even actually grew up to become an adult, to understand what being a father was. And second, financially, like far as financially, like where I was at. So that's mainly my those my two.
I got one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You good? I was about to ask about your background. A lot of things were chiming in, but go ahead, share, brother.
One of my transitions was become like turning from boy to man. That was a hard transition. It was just turning from a boy to a man and willing to take the responsibility of being a father. My situation is a lot different than everybody's. Like I had full custody of my daughter since she was born, so I kind of was like forced to. I was young. I was like 19 when I had a baby, so I was forced to stay in the house. I was forced to not do the stuff that a 19-year-old want to do. So that was like a hard transition for me. That's probably like my biggest one.
If I can lean on and throw this question in there, since you said that, Kenny, I want to ask a personal question to you. We see a lot of our sisters having animosity today towards their children's father due to his lack of responsibility in his children's lives. Being in a reverse situation, do you have any animosity to your daughter's mother?
I would say yes. I have a lot of animosity towards her. Just because over the years, she caused so much pain and just so much unnecessary nonsense that I just don't deserve as a father. I take good care of my child. She wants for nothing, and she's like a statistic of a black woman. Like, she's a statistic. So she just makes it hard. So I hope from her.
You're going out a bit, brother. I know you're driving, but we can't hear you.
Oh, snap. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I hold animosity against her just because of all the stuff she has done, like the hurtful stuff she has done to my child, not even to me. Like, one personal situation that I can, like, when my daughter was like, when she was 3 months old, my daughter's mom went to Miami. She went to Miami for like 4 months straight. And she left a 19-year-old with a 4-month-old baby. So I got a lot of build-up animosity against the mother of my yes. So like, I don't know if y'all heard that because I'm riding through like a bad service area.
Yeah, we were ready to hear you. We were able to hear you.
Nidir, and in terms of the barbershop talk, is there any other brothers who have baby moms that might not be the most ideal, but they found a way to forgive them and keep rolling because they might be able to help him, you know, in his situation?
Yeah, well, I could definitely piggyback on that. Well, I have 5 children. All 5 of my children was with my first wife. So we went through a nasty divorce back in 2011, 2012. And during the your brother mute his phone real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, appreciate that. So while we was going through a custody battle with my youngest 2 children, my ex had moved to Atlanta. I mean, disrespected the court proceedings and everything and moved to Atlanta. And that, I mean, it was one of the things that really like took me out of here, man, because I was used to always waking up, seeing my children every day, and then we're going through that separation for like the next, I say like 8 months. She lived out in Morton, PA, close to where I was living at the time. And then she, like I said, she moved to Atlanta, and I ended up going to Atlanta to check into school, make sure the kids was doing well in school, and they had signed some paperwork where I wasn't able to get any information in my children's school system. I mean, they basically tried to wipe me off the planet as if I was my youngest daughter's father's. So the one thing, and I saw that some of the questions was, I was paying child support crazy, like $1,600 a month. So of course, you know, financially what that was doing to me as far as trying to do that, and I went through foreclosure, lost my home. Like, it was just layers after layers after layers. But the one thing I did is I kept my fight going through the courts. So when it was all said and done, I ended up getting custody of my 2 youngest children, who I have now. And my ex, even though she took them away from me, she didn't do anything in school. Like, it was everything about like destroying me. And in the end, it made me strong, but it still has a very negative impact on my youngest children and even some of my older children. So for a long time, I used to be, I was disappointed in her, honestly. I was disappointed. I didn't have like that animosity towards her, because I knew at the end of the day, my end goal was just to be my children's father and be in their life. So that was my focus. My focus wasn't on, you know, the things she put me through, because I stuck to my guns, and for lack of a better term. And at the end, my end goal was my children. So I wasn't gonna let anything that she did stop me from being in their lives. So to get forward and have that, especially with you, brother Ken, you know, you taking care of your only child, and that's still at the end of the day is her mother. So that animosity that you might have might spill over, and just in certain times, and your daughter might feed off that. So that might jeopardize the relationship she deserves with her mother, regardless of what you and her go through and her missteps. Because in time, man, maybe she might see the elder of her ways and do right by your child. That's all you can ask for at the end of the day is, at the end of the day, your daughter have a healthy relationship with her mother. If her mother choose to be that healthy parent in the future, man. So that would be my advice for you is to just make peace with it. Make peace with everything that went on, and things will work out in your favor, bro. Like they have been, honestly.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I want to speak from the role of a child when you hear another parent speaking negatively of the other parent. So, you know, my father, you know, the times he wasn't in jail, there was many times that he would give me his word and not follow through. And I sit on the steps and wait for him to come. And my mom would say constantly, you know who ain't coming, and she would and she would just kind of tell me it ain't gonna happen, da da da. But see, as the child, that actually made me feel some type of way towards my mom. So I wasn't feeling some type of way for my dad for not showing up. I was feeling some type of way for my mom for speaking it out, because a child wants to believe in both parents. And so you got to be very, very careful when your hurt or your relationship or your animosity kind of spills over in your communication. Now, granted, years down the line, you know, I started to understand, you know, my dad kind of made his own bed, and we're good now, and I forgave him. We straight. But the reality is, when my mom was saying stuff, I was looking at her like, maybe it's your fault. Maybe the reason he ain't showing up. You know what I mean? And so you just got to kind of let that other parent play their role while you keep being the best parent that you can be, because you don't want the kid to start looking at you sideways because you're always speaking negative.
Yeah, but Kenny, I think that can work both ways, though, because my mother never spoke ill of my father.
Right,
ever.
right.
And they have a great relationship, but he never showed up for me. Mm. And so I would look to her to say, how could you have such a strong relationship with someone who treated me so badly? And so it's a balancing act. And so him and I do not have a relationship at all because of that. but I've had to kind of reconcile myself. So I think with kids, it's all that. My brother feels something completely different. He's lived the same exact life every single day of my life. So he sees it one way and I see it a different way. So it can impact each kid separately for sure.
Demetrice makes a very good point. I've seen it from a different aspect, I guess, because my surrogate parents, it was internal. My father and mother that raised me, they never said anything negative about my father. It wasn't until later in the years that when I was able to try to establish a relationship with him, he kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But our situation was actually really strange because I was raised in a household for a number of years, not knowing that I was even adopted. I believed the parents I had were my parents, the brothers and sisters I had were my brother and sister, and they did it to protect me. But in the midst of that, I had brothers and sisters who I learned later in life who were not intentionally, but they were very negative towards me because of us growing up in a different household. But the reason I found out later is they kept us separated is because my surrogate parents didn't want them spewing hatred and building that in me towards my biological father. And we have a great relationship now. I mean, my biological father, actually, we, for the first time in our 35 years, we had the same birthday. We actually got to celebrate our birthdays. And it was special for me, but I was grateful, in my latter years in life, I'm grateful to my parents for not doing that and letting me make the decision for myself. So even if I chose to have animosity towards my father, it wasn't from a skewed perspective of someone putting that inside of me. And that's what was great that your mother did for you first. She allowed what we used to talking that way as fraternity brothers. But Demetrice, they allow you to be able to make the decision for yourself. You were able to see him through your own eyes and not a skewed perception. I think it's very dangerous for the opposite parent, whether it be a male or a female, to do that to you, because now the opportunity for atonement and reconciliation later in life becomes that much more difficult on both sides of the field. So because of that decision, in the future, you have an opportunity to piece that relationship, and it will be your choice, as opposed to her telling you to hate this man, and then you later in life find out, oh, I should have liked him. Maybe it was something between them. He still did you wrong, but maybe it was something between them. So that's my take on it. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I want to say something. I heard something a long time ago, and what helped me was that I had a brother
I'm sorry,
tell me
Mr. Terry. Somebody might be on like the car phone, Bluetooth. If you can, go mute for me.
I'm on mute.
Yes, there you go.
Am I good now? There we go. I want to thank all you brothers for sharing what you were sharing, because like I understand, feelings are feelings and that's what they are. But I learned some things that helped me. And one thing, I had a brother teach me that resentment will rob me of the gifts that God has to offer. So, and the reason why I say that is because, like, I remember having a resentment toward my mother because I didn't know who my parents were until I was about 8 years old. And then my father died, and I lived with my grandparents, and I thought they were my parents, real parents. And my father passed away when I was 12. And the only thing that the only conversation I ever really remember having with him was that he told me to make sure to go to college because he didn't want me to be like he was, but it took me some time, to work through those resentments and those feelings, because like I got into some other things that covered up my feelings, like the drinking and the drugs that covered up my feelings so that I didn't have to think about it. And as we all know, that those feelings are still there, It's just that the chemicals cover them up. And when I start praying and when I start asking for some help, not just prayer, but from a fellowship, from some brothers that can help me, like you guys, then things got better. And it took a little bit of time here and there. It wasn't overnight, and it wasn't no miracle. It just, I kept working on it and working on those things until I became better. And once I became better, then I started to have a better family life and relationships with my children and my family, you know, because first of all, I don't believe my family really wanted me around when I was doing that street stuff, you know, and I don't blame them. But today, I know that I've learned a lot more, and I try to stay open to anybody and everybody's suggestions because I don't know everything. So thank you for letting me share that. You know, I needed to jump in earlier when I heard you guys talking about who was the significant person in your life, because like I said, I had an uncle, he was one, and my father, he passed away when I was 12. But thank you for letting me jump in there.
Thank you very much. This question, if anybody else it applies to, please answer as well. But this one might be geared a little bit to you, Tizz. Tizz is a father of 3 children by 3 different women. If you have children by different women, what is the most difficult part about being a father to them? And what has been a way that you navigated through that to make peace for yourself, for them, and for your children?
All right, so first, what made it hard having 3 different baby moms was the simple fact that, like, when I was in relationships with all of them, I'm not gonna say I was the best guy. Like, you know, like I did what I was supposed to do. You know, men is men. You feel me? So I just feel like like with that, like, far as my first baby mom, dealing with her, and then moving on to my next baby mom, having a baby with her, then them having altercations with each other, a lot of fighting, a lot of negative vibes, just far as like, because my past relationship, my baby mom and my past relationship, she wasn't really over me yet. So it was just a lot of back and forth, a lot of animosity between them, and then going on to the third baby mom. You feel me? So it was like a repeated cycle of me getting in relationships and you know, having children with these women, and then having their anger towards me kind of made it harder for me to actually to be a father to all of them, because once I wasn't with none of them, then it was just like all right, now, like, they really expect more from you when you're not with them versus what they do when you with them, when they got a problem with you. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it's like with that, like, I just felt like I was in a situation where I was still young. I was early in the beginning stage of being a comedian and actually doing what I'm doing. You get what I'm saying? So it was just like, it was kind of hard to kind of like deal with all that was going on with them, and then with my personal life, even as far as like just struggling with just like financially, and it was just a lot going on. But what I learned from that is basically like, I just had to put my pants on, man. I had to put my pants up, and I had to do what I had to do. Like, you get what I'm saying? Sometimes, like with females, you gotta just sit back, and you gotta just look at yourself and understand how they feel and where they coming from in certain situations. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, far as things that they expect from you as a father. And once I did that, and I just got my shit together and did what I had to do, and now I can honestly say that I'm a great father to my kids, financially and just physically, emotionally, and all traits. I'm near 100%, and everything made a big U-turn.
For all those who are co-parenting, how does not having a great relationship with the mother of your children affected your role as a father? or vice versa, if you've had a great relationship, how's that affect you?
Yeah, I like to take that.
I can answer that one.
Hello?
Oh.
Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, I want to jump in on that particular question because my oldest daughter is by my first wife, and we had a good relationship until I turned out like a nut, and she got away from me. However, when I turned my own personal life around and began to accept the faith that I'm in, even though we had a bad relationship, I had a good relationship with my young daughter. And so I got married for a second time. And when I got married, myself and my second wife began to take care of my daughter. And the relationship between my first wife and I began to increase and got better. However, what made it extraordinary was the fact that my second wife and my first wife became real good friends. And what that did was they shared a sisterhood that took me completely out of the picture. And it allowed the daughter, myself, and my current wife to have a wonderful relationship. And when we began to have children, the older daughter became the actual sister of the children that were being produced. And it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with how the women related to one another. And that took me completely out of the picture. And I thought it was noteworthy to make that statement because oftentimes when you have difficulties, it's always generally the women that argue with one another that keep drama going because they're all after the same individual. But fortunately, in this case, my current wife, she was a extraordinary woman that became a sister of my first wife. That's all I got.
Rondae?
What's up? So for me, co-parenting has been a different experience, especially me traveling, playing basketball, working on various things. It's definitely been a different experience. But the best thing about it was we both moved from love. We both moved from the understanding that a little boy, a little black boy, he needs his father. He needs that love and that attention from his father. And that's why I got to give credit to her for understanding that and believing in that and believing in me. The relationship didn't work out for whatever reason, but who she is as a person and who I am, we both aligned in that spirit. So that ultimately has me talking to my son a lot when I can't see him. Sometimes people have that animosity or that distant connection that they can't communicate. So you can't get on the phone and talk to your child because your child is always with the mother or vice versa. So I feel like having that understanding and moving with love, it has helped me to grow as a person, as a man. And I also wanted to say another thing about what we're doing right now. Nidir, I want to thank you. You know who you are. We know who you are. We all love you. That we should grow from. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you repeat that once more?
Oh, I was saying with this thing that you're doing, having us fathers on this call talking, expressing ourselves, showing our vulnerabilities and things that we could do better is big for our community, our race. A lot of us grow up not knowing that, not understanding that. We don't feel it because it isn't showed to us, man. And that's where the difference comes in. So we got to hold each other accountable from this day forward on, if we're going to move this way and want to be this way, then we should tell the person next to us, because we all got a friend or a brother or someone we know who isn't handling their business and doing their responsibility. So it's great that we're doing the call, but let's take the next step further. Let's put the action forth and show the people that we care, that we are for them. And then that energy, it transcends, it moves, it inspires other people, and that makes the world change. That's the beauty of life, because you see it just from you to your child. You see that love, and that when they blossom and they grow, they move like that. So that's what we need to do with the people that are next to us, the people that we see every day. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can say, that was, well, one, that's the purpose definitely of this episode, to be able, that's why I said I wanted to have on, fathers who have had an impact on my life, whether you're younger than me or older than me, whether you became a father after me or before. All of you brothers have had that impact on me and helped me grow as a father and keep my promise that I made to God, to my children's mother, to her father, and to myself, and wanting to fill the void, even having my father, my surrogate father in my life. It's something about your biological parent that not having them or feeling that they love you or care for you, it still does something to you as a child. And for me, for those who've known me in the younger days of my life, you knew me to be some ways very angry, some ways very nomadic. I'll always drop it a dime and I would travel. And a lot of people would praise me for traveling, always being on the road. But really, I was running from the reality of love and family. Because just, if I may, I even made up in my mind that the family that was proven to me that they loved me, they raised me, they took care of me, they groomed me. After finding out, late in life that I was adopted, I started to feel unloved. I would make it up in my mind that my older brothers and sisters didn't love me as their brother, and I was just the outsider in the home. And then there was things that my biological brothers and sisters, whether intention was to hurt me or to upset me, they would say things. And I even had one of my relatives say, one of my siblings say, you're not my brother, you Muriel and Lamont's son. So these things have happened, and it resonated through me in life and made me the type of person that I would be. And I was very angry. Me and my father, we were born on the same day. And it wasn't until I got older that I could really understand the pain that it caused him for sharing a birthday with me. He never called me. And that was one thing. He already was very absent, but he also never called on my birthday. And that will destroy a kid. As I got older, I realized this man lost his wife on his birthday. Every year, I'm a reminder of him losing the love of his life. And I was looking for, they haven't put it out yet, but Kevin Hart is making a similar movie about this, about a guy who has to step up and be the father. His wife dies while giving birth to a child, and now this is their first child, and he's stuck with this child. So I've tried, in my latter years in life, be understanding more than angry at my father for not being there, and then being that much more grateful for God for blessing me with the mother and father he did give me, because they had their own children, 6, and they took me in as a child, and even took in my other siblings from the beginning when my mother passed, giving birth to me. But the rest of them ended up back with my father, and it was just one of those things. Like I said, it hit me close to home. So I'm very intentional now about the father I am. Some people, in this day and time, they call it clout chasing. I'm very outspoken about my fatherhood. I post all the time, and some people, are judgmental of me doing it. But my goal is to show other men how to step up and be those men, especially Black fathers, because one thing I've always saw was negative stigmas. And my surrogate father wasn't one to be out broadcasting the type of father he is. My cousin Ishmael, who I looked up as a father all my life, he never broadcast the type of father he is, and all the other men, Demetrice, you never did it, and all the other brothers on the phone who became fathers in my and I watched your and tailored the way I was going to become a father that way. You never broadcast it. It's all private. The only stigma that's out there is the stigma of bad parenting. You know, I love it. I gotta say this on the phone for Tizz to have 3 different. I don't like the term baby mothers. I don't use that. So to have 3 mother of his children, they navigate well. They all get along. He's a Christian and has a Muslim daughter, and I seen him step up to the plate to make sure that she is raised in the Islamic way and to respect the mother's wishes. So all these things it plays a part, and to me it was important for me to step up and broadcast my journey as a father to help other brothers, not just the ones close to me. Because I'm be honest, Rondae, you can't be around me if you're not a good father. And that's the way I've operated all through my life. Because of the environment I came up in, I don't allow people to be around me that aren't good fathers anyway. So everybody, like I said, all the men you see around me, if they ain't did one thing right, they're taking care of their children. So we do, like Ronnie said, have to hold people around us accountable for being good men. And I'll get it later. Yes.
Real quick, you mentioned something, and I wanted to touch on that when you talked about your father and when you got to see what your father went through and his journey, you know, realizing the pain that he was experiencing. And I believe that is honestly part of the healing. You know, I had to seek out the relationship with my dad kind of the same way, because I found out he was out of jail and I had a bunch of brothers and sisters. So I make a joke that my dad got a mean spades hand. He got like 9 and 4 possibles. Right. And but I had all these brothers and sisters that did not know that they had this other brother. I only knew my older sister. And so I would travel to South Philly to see them. And that's how me and my dad started getting a relationship. But I always saw pain. You know, when I was around, it was like something he was avoiding. And not until a couple years ago, me and my dad, we were walking in South Philly. And I see one of the dudes I grew up with, because when my dad, the times he was out of jail, there were times that I stayed at his house and they were strung out. A lot of, basically all my friends who was around his way was strung out or something like that. And I'm sitting here and I'm like walking like, that's crazy. And my dad had a talk with me. He said, look, son, and this is the first time he ever talked about not being around. He says, I know I wasn't there for you. He said, but I saw you had a strong mom. My other kids didn't. He said, you looked up to me so much that I knew you would probably follow my footsteps. And his dad was a drunk and used to beat up my grandmother. And so early on, he had to fight his dad for his siblings. And when he got kicked out the house, he was too young to work. So he started hustling. And selling guns. And so that was his go-to move. And so then he was a chef, so he would try to do the right stuff, but he would still have this life that he knew that was his default life. And so I started to get it, right? And then he says, man, I didn't want you around me because I didn't want you to end up like this. And I knew if any of my kids would be okay, it would be you. And now, while to some people say, man, that's bull, but the reality is it made sense in the moment because he was my hero. Even though he wasn't around, it was like, man, my dad. Every son, especially every kid really wants their dad to be a hero. And not until I learned his story did it heal the wounds that I was carrying as a grown-up, right? And so you saying that you got your dad's story, you know what I mean, that resonated.
Thank you. I know our good brother Rondae has to pull out before we jump back in. I had one more question for him. I know he has to pull out. He's trying to get to his son. Those valuable time because he's traveling. He doesn't get an opportunity all the time to speak to his son. So Rondae, you still here with us? Might have to go.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here.
Okay. So let me get to the last question I had for you. How do you keep? It's going to be a 2-tier question now. I don't want to ask them separate because I know you got to go. How do you keep your relationship and bond strong with your child while being on the road the majority of the year? And how do you plan to explain it to your child, because his son is still young, when he gets older, to be able to build that bond. And Demetrice, I know you travel too. I travel. I want us to jump in and answer this question as well. But I want to start Rondae because I know he has to go.
For me, that's pretty tough, man. You know, just traveling so much, you know, how much we travel playing and stuff like that. So not being able to see him and, you know, hug him and, you know, just be there with him, play with him and do those things, it's tough for me. I would say the best part about it is this thing we got now, FaceTime, has helped a lot. I get to see my son, you know, say, hey, dad, yo, dad. And it's like the best feeling in the world, to know that he knows who I am. He loves me, and I make him happy, you know? So just being able to have this FaceTime, these moments with him on FaceTime, the videos his mother sends me, they're greatly appreciated. And I don't know, I definitely don't know what I would do without those moments. So I try to make the best of every chance I can get, because they're definitely brief. But I want him to know me as we get older. I send him like 1-minute videos and things like that to just say, hey, right, your dad loves to drive race cars or something like that. Just so he gets to know me when he gets older and he looks at these videos, or he sees me shooting the basketball, you know, and he starts to fall in love with the things that I love. That just makes the relationship that much better. And then the second part of the question, can you repeat that part?
As he gets old, like right now it's simplistic because of his age. As he gets older, how do you plan to navigate with making him understand that you're on the road so much?
I would say for me, it's a little different being on the road. I could take my son, especially playing with the NBA, I could take my son with me, and he could hang out at the games. He can watch the games. So it's a little different in my position being there. But I think that'll be a great experience. You know, as men having sons, I feel like we are kids' superheroes, you know. So I want him to look at me like I'm the LeBron James of the world. So everywhere I go, I'm going to try to take him with me just so he can experience that, get to meet other NBA players, see different things. I feel like when we have the opportunity to show our kids different environments and different type of loves, that makes their mind, their heart, their body more open. So that's definitely how I move with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Nidir, I mean, I travel enough, thankfully not as bad as I used to previously for work, but I'd say the hardest part for me has been getting over the guilt of leaving and missing certain moments, you know, of my child's life. I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. So now the older one can relate and understands, but the younger one still craves, well, where did you go? Why did you leave? And I think the biggest challenge for me, because I've come in with this idea of perfection, which is don't miss a practice, don't miss a game, don't miss a school moment, be there for every single opportunity. And so I've had to battle that internally myself as to what can I sacrifice? What will I sacrifice? What will I tell my job I will not do? You know, because my kids become more important. How do I establish that balance? But I think the bigger part then is, you know, my guilt turned into buying things. So every trip I bring back something, but it allows me to also share my experiences. I've picked this up from here. I've picked this up from there. Let me tell you what I saw. Let me help you see some of the things I've got a chance to experience, and allow my trips to become part of our journey versus just part of my journey. And so that's been kind of the way I've been able to kind of shift that some, you know, as much as possible. But I agree with the good brother Rondae and that how this comes together, and the value of electronics is so much more important that people can get to see you every day. You know, not just hear you and not just read a text message, but visibly see you every day has so much different value, you know, than it ever did before.
For me, being on the road was the most painful part, because for the first close to year of my daughter's life, I was home. So now I'm being able to build that foundation, and because of the circumstance I was dealing with the trial, they finally lifted my travel ban. I need to go right out because we needed money. So I'm out for 2 months, and it just seemed like I'm missing all these amazing moments. I was lucky to catch her first steps. I literally walked through the door and she's crawling. She stood up and walked to me when she saw me. And that was a moment that I'll never forget for as long as I live. But then other situations happen at milestones for both of my children, and I'm not here for them. One of the most recent ones that crushed me was trying to get home before their grandmother passed, and being able to be with them, and especially my oldest, because this was the woman dearest to her. I wanted to be there to comfort her. And for me, I'm out on this road and I'm trying, because we're under contract, and if I leave, it's going to be a problem. And I'm just telling them, look, hold on, literally the contract is over in a couple of days. But it's like, if I don't get back here, I won't be with them by the time, she passes away. So I just say, the hell with it. And I booked my own flight and just came on back home. I didn't make it in time, but at least I was there for them to be able to comfort my family. So for me, traveling, missing those milestones, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to adjust mentally and psychologically to that, because I pride myself on being a overly involved parent. But it's one of those things that I'm glad I have brothers like Demetrice to be an example to me, to show me how to navigate through that, because Demetrice has been doing this on a high level for years. So so for me, I have those examples to look to help me balance it out. Now explaining it to them as they get older. My oldest child, she seemed to understand more so that bills gotta be paid, but she constantly calls and says, when you coming home? So even though she knows that I'm gone for 2 months, is when are you coming home? And that still scars a father, because it's like, man, you just want to be there and receive that love. And the fact that you can't be there to comfort and say, look, I'll be here tomorrow, even surprise them. I don't think I'll ever get used to that, but I should be able to navigate. Anybody else want to respond to it? Mr. Terry? Who else? Who I cut off?
Hey, Nidir, I feel like that's where it's really helpful, if you can, to have either a co-parent or a wife or somebody to help you out, because there is a point of diminishing return. I spent at least 4 years kind of in a role as a consultant, and so I was South Carolina, here, there, in Kentucky, and everywhere. But my wife was really holding it down, you know what I'm saying? And my son was probably 1 or 2 at the time, so he wasn't really at the age where he understood me being gone, but I understood me being gone, which was rough. But guess what? You got to keep your crib afloat. And so do you stay home and not keep the crib afloat, or you get out and keep the crib afloat? And I think the best thing for you to do at that point, take care of your family. You got to be on the road, make sure your family is good. And then my wife was just a strong rock at the crib, holding it down.
And I'll piggyback on that as well. Early in my career, I remember it was a point where I was 80% of my time was travel. You know what I mean? But for me, I started to create this ratio of paycheck to presence, right? And when I started to feel like I was more of a paycheck than a presence, I would make shifts, And so for me, sometimes that was altering career, but ultimately what I end up doing was I started to build my own deal kind of underneath the scenes. And it was 9 years of me kind of doing more, which meant I was out the house even more, because now I'm building, I'm working full time. I'm in the military also, and I'm building a business. And so my mindset was, okay, I'm going to get to a point where I can be present. And like Brother Alphonso said, and the times where I couldn't be super present, I had to make sure that my presence was felt every time I was present. So I'm on the floor playing games with my kids. I don't care about the TV show. I don't care about the games. You know, it's about y'all during this time. And then I would actually have conversations with them even at that time. And now, you know, as a full-time entrepreneur, you know, one of the things I do is I bake them in my day like an appointment. So I'll take them to the pool from 12 to 1. That's before anybody else get there, and they get an hour, but it's a purposeful hour, you know, and I'm jumping in the pool for 30 minutes, then I'm out reading a book and making calls while I'm watching them. And then, you know, I'll bake times in my day where we can spend that time and then include them in everything I can. So if I'm going somewhere, if I'm going to pick up something from a client, I ask my kids, hey, y'all want to roll? Like, and so I incorporate them in all of that. And actually what it did is now my kids are entrepreneurial. You know, now they're thinking, oh man. And so I realized I had to involve them in my journey, but I had to also over time alter my journey because of what it meant to me, right? Because I knew my dad wasn't around. So I knew for me, I had to be. And so I had to make that shift in my own heart, you know, even if it wasn't for the kids, it was something I knew I always wanted. So I knew I had to provide.
Anybody else want to jump in? All right, so we're going to move on. For all of us surrogate fathers, this is a word, whether you are a stepfather, if you are in a child's life that wasn't birthed through you, I would love for you to chime in on these questions that our sisters had and other brothers asked. For the men who are amazing, someone even calls bonus parents. What made you choose to step up and raise that child? Okay. All right. So I'll start being surrogate father. First and foremost, me deciding to accept my oldest daughter as my own started with the love I have for her mother, and seeing the necessity of it, seeing that. And again, one thing I always refuse to do, like my father never did to my biological father, I won't throw a black man under the bus. So this is not that. This is just reality talk. I saw the need that to be a helper to her and to help her get on the track that she wanted to be on. She's more than me in anything. She's a business partner. The love we have for each other is strong, and we have operated in a sense of building each other up. And it's very important to say that, because I can't love a child without loving the mother, period, for any of us. So the love starts there before it even happens for the child. Now, Ava makes it easy to love. I'm not going to lie. This is one of the most amazing children I've ever met in my life. Always happy, always cheerful, dancing, smiling, being this great child. So for me, I just didn't understand why it was so difficult for someone to want to be in this child's life. And because of the principles that my surrogate father taught me by being in my life, there was no way I could abandon ship on this child. So before I ever was a father to my own daughter, I was a father to her. And I executed in the same principles that were taught to me through my father. By making sure that, one, they had stability. That was most important to me, making sure they had the things they need financially, a roof over their head to be comfortable. And then two, making sure they had real love. And it's one thing, God rest Mom Pam's soul, she said to me at Nigel's first birthday party, she said that, you know, you have to love Ava 20 times more than you love Nigel. And I took that serious. This is my first time actually repeating it, because I think I held out at the funeral. y'all recall, I said something she said to me that stuck, but it was important for me to get this off now. And that resonated with me. She said, you have to love Ava 20 times more. And I understood it because my parents loved me more than they loved their children. I didn't understand it when I was young. As I said before, internally, I felt like I got the short end of the stick all around the board from everybody, and I wasn't loved. But as I came to know, I realized I was giving more love than the other children around because of that loss that I was going to feel and not having my parent. I don't think I could ever replace her father. I won't even try. And for that reason, I'll never disrespect him in front of her or not around her. I hold him to the highest accord. If I can be blunt, there was a time where we were almost at serious odds before my daughter was born for a comment he made to Tanika. And I had a decision to make. And I'm grateful to some of the brothers that I do have in my life straightening me out before I approached that situation wrongly. And my conversation for him was, we have this amazing child. We do. We have to present the best foot forward to this child. So me and you have to have that relationship and that bond. So I've gone the extra mile why even two of them couldn't get along. I made sure I built a relationship with him so that for the purpose of our daughter, we could move forward. And there's been a beautiful relationship that has been built because of my conscious decision to operate the way I do. And I consider Ava my daughter. There is no separation. There is, like I said, these titles, surrogate, step, and all these things. It doesn't exist to me. That's my daughter. Just like the man on the line here, Lamount Muhammad. There is no surrogate to me. I use as a title for the show, but that is my father. And he will always be held in that esteem because to me, a father isn't necessarily being born of someone. It's not nature, it's nurture. And this man has nurtured everything about me that I am, the hustle that I get, that all of you have appreciated in my life. I learned how to be a hustler from this man out hustling Final Call newspapers all my life. 95-degree weather had me out there in the suit and bow tie. So all these principles that were instilled in me, I knew that the father I needed to be, if I'm going to be a father to my daughter, I have to be even greater father to her sister, because I don't want the dissension between my children that was built between me and some of my biological siblings. So I want them to stay strong and intact. And like he said about even my older sister, Michelle, she became a sister for her other siblings instead of a half sister. Well, now my daughter, Nija, and Ava have the closest relationship than any kids I've ever seen. So that's deep.
And Nidir, can I chime in here?
Yes, sir.
It's funny because I'm going to kind of pass it off to Alphonso. It's been said already earlier in the show that Black men get a bad rep, for being terrible fathers, right? And so we got to deal with all of the, the domestics piece, the courts, the this, the that, the media. So the question that I have for Alphonso, because we all trying to help somebody, is I just innately think like Nidir. If I was raising a kid that wasn't mine, I would think that me and that guy got to be aligned to be able to make sure that kid is in the best position. So what's the breakdown, Alphonso, when cats don't think like that? Because that's my instinct. That's my intuition.
So that's actually a good question. What usually happens when people have that type of conflict, it's usually from their fragility and their self-esteem. So because they feel that there's a guilt there, so when they see somebody else stepping up into that type of platform, it makes them look into their own situation and it has them self-reflect. And if you don't like that, you know, you're going to go to your natural defense. And a lot of times, if you're not used to expressing yourself in a verbal manner, it's going to go into more aggressive type of situation. So that's why, you know, and plus, you know, there's always that model, like that alpha male type of situation that, like, okay, you're taking care of my kid, that means that you're better than me. So it gets into that alpha male type of situation to try to butt heads. But that's an old way of thinking, you know what I mean? So I'm seeing a lot more of this co-parenting, which is so important for kids, because 60% of my caseload is with kids, you know what I mean? And so I see the damage that's done when there's toxic relationships between, parents, and it affects the kids. Sometimes we're not aware of that because we're so up with, like, not liking the other parent, and we forget that it really affects that kid. I myself am, I'm a stepfather. So I have a 10-year-old son, and and the thing is, I'm always about co-parenting, even with the with my son's biological father. He's in his life more now because of our relationship, and I made sure that we talked man to man, like, listen, I want to see generational curses being broken. He needs to see strong Black men together, being able to help raise this young king. And right now me and his father have a great relationship. The mom isn't like that, but I let her know, I'm like, listen, would you rather the other way? Would you rather us, being more conflictual? And that wouldn't help out the kid. So even with my son, he doesn't call me dad. I made up a name. He calls me Boba. So what that is like, it's, he has a special name for me. He doesn't feel weird calling me anything else, but also out of respect to his biological as well. And we made that mutual type of situation, and he's so happy. Like, whenever we go to, like, soccer games or something like that, I'm there, his dad is right next to me, we got shirts on and everything like that, and we're cheering them on. You know what I mean? But it gets to it. But what happens is, you have to get to that level, and there's on this book, this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? It's one of the quotes is, seek first to understand, to be understood, right? And the thing is, when you're not understanding each other, it's hard to get your point across. So it's really understanding the other person's situation, and really, and really having that engaging type of conversation when they're ready. Because a lot of times it's all about timing and semantics. Well, if that person is still feeling some type of way, it has to be about that timing. But to answer your question, the reason why there's that conflict is because of that male ego. You know what I mean? And so if you're not used to expressing yourself, you're going to think it's a threat as opposed to an opportunity. I'm from West Africa, right? So we're all about, it takes a village to raise a kid. So even embracing, my son, embracing him, my family all embraced him because we raising other people's kids anyway. You know what I mean? So he just went back into the pot, and we're all helping him grow, because that's the mentality we need to be able to get back to. That, you know what I mean? Like, we have to uplift this next generation, because these are going to be the future judges, lawyers, politicians, doctors, all these things that's going to help to continue to change that mold, to change that stigma that is incorporated as a Black person. So,
and can you chime in real quick?
What's the question again? Forgive my math here.
For the men who are amazing bonus parents, surrogate, stepdad, however we want to phrase it, adopted father, what made you choose to step up and raise a child as your own?
Well, first and foremost, there was a commitment made to your mother by my wife. And that commitment was that she would raise you as her own and see to it that you got through life just as she would have done for you. And at the time, the father was devastated. They had 6 children together, you being the 6th one, and he literally lost his mind. However, I saw the need to just be for him what I would want somebody to be for me at that given point. And I just became naturally your dad because from the hospital, you were taken home and put in our environment, and you developed and grew just like one of the normal children, and you were in our sight in the household. The problem that you cited earlier, that you had other siblings, and that began to increase problematic situations, not only from the siblings that your mother and father made, but there were older siblings as well. And they became problematic in the relationship. However, because of the commitment that was made, we continued the journey and not allowed those negative vibrations to interfere. As you got older, your father, he came to us, we talked to him, and he said it was arrangement between us from the birth, and he would never step in to try to have any kind of battle or fight over legalities of any kind. And that was very honorable of him. Maybe many people don't know that, that he was that kind of man. He saw that you were being cared for the way in which he would have cared for you if he were in the state of mind at that very particular time. And so that development is something that you had a special relationship. Believe it or not, it was the children that impressed that we manage you forthright. They were all in all about you. It wasn't just us, it was even the siblings that you excuse me, that you all live with.
Muslims know what that call is. Go ahead.
And so that development, it puts you in various kinds of environments. It made you a good student in school. You became a very strong protector of young girls. I mean, it was such an amazing thing to watch you develop as a young man. You became skilled in different arts and crafts, I would say. And you had many mentors that were very, very good people. And so it's just a bright thing to know that you became a success story of from birth, and that a promise that was made was fulfilled, and it is still being fulfilled even to this day. When I watch you deal with your children, Ava as well as Naja, it doesn't seem, I don't see any difference. And you know, you're very protective to the both of them, realizing that they're females, and that's something that was instinctive in you from a young boy. I recall at high school they had a what they call a special academy for in Chester High for Chester High students.
Chester High Academy.
And one of the problems came up when the parents would complain about you all was getting special treatment, so they had to merge you back into the school system, and you became a defender and a protector of all of the people that were in that school, because they had to go back into the school of the normal school, and then you became their friend, their protector, and it has grown. That's why you have so many Facebook friends and Twitter friends and all of that, because that kind of energy is felt around the world, and it's something that we don't get. And I thank Allah for being a part of that development. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, I definitely want you to chime in about Larry and your relationship with him as his surrogate father as well.
Now, dear, if I could just say one thing, your dad mentioned a word. He said commitment. And I think that's really what separates fatherhood, right? It's commitment over convenience, right? When you have children and you think conveniently, right? That's what separates. That's when dads don't step up to the plate. But the moment you say, man, this new life is here, and regardless of how we got there, whether we were young when we had kids, whether we were old when we have kids, whether they were your children to start with, or whether they came into your family, when you made a commitment as a real man and you followed through all the way to the end, that's what makes you a father, right? You can have no blood children, and if you make a commitment to those kids, they become your kids. And you can have blood children, and if you make it convenient, then they become somebody else's kids. And so I think that focus of commitment versus convenience is everything.
Amazing. Mr. Terrence?
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me? Okay. You know, I remember this when I met the children's mother, and she had a son. I'll tell you what really made me, and I appreciate everybody for what they shared, but I'll tell you what really made me dive into this like a commitment and caring for a child that wasn't mine, but he was mine. I remember, and I don't mean to blast anybody, but I'm just telling you what's real. He wanted to see his father, and we took him there to see him, and it was at his grandmother's house. And when we got there, we were waiting and waiting and waiting, and he kept saying he would show up, and the grandmother kept saying, oh, he'll be here, he'll be here. And we waited for such a long time, and there was no show. So when we left, I looked at his face, and I saw the expression on his face. I could feel what he was feeling, and I knew that it was time for me to step up and not try to be his father, but be a friend and be someone of a protector and someone to show him the ropes. And after that, you know, I really dug in. And even though their mother and I didn't stay together, we still had a relationship. You know, we still, when I came to see the kids, you know, our children, I came to see him also. You know, and when we had family things, he was invited and he went also. So, you know, when I look at this thing wholeheartedly, it's like, you know, my grandmother used to say this: when you take the goose, you take the gander. And I looked at it as, you know, that's my duty. That's my job. I need to be a father to him like I am to my, you know, children, my own children. And over the years, we have developed a great relationship. You know, he's a lot older. He's doing a lot of good things today. And I'm not saying that he got that from me, but I believe I gave him the initiative and the guidance, and it's about showing somebody what to do. Not, you can do all the talking you want. I can talk and recite literature and recite all kinds of stuff, but it's action. You know, I need to put the action in to show that this is what I believe, and if it will resonate, so that the child will pick up and say, that's the way I want to live. You know, so it wasn't a challenge for me, you know, to step up and be a father. it wasn't a challenge because, again, like I said, I knew that that was the right thing to do. So I guess that's all I have for now. But yeah, thanks for calling on me.
Yes, sir. This might apply again, but I'm gonna answer to this as well. One of the questions that was sent in were, do you feel like your child is more likely to be subjected to racial discrimination by multi-races? And if so, how have you helped them navigate through the system? This question was under the subject of parents of multiracial children. So you expound on that, and then I'll follow up.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I got to go back to the old school learnings that I was taught. When I was raised, my grandmother taught me that if you play with dirt, you get dirty. So, and what I learned from that was she taught me how to pick out people, whether they were whatever race or whatever color, because her being Native American, you know, I couldn't understand how she could talk like that and the way that their race was treated. You know, I couldn't understand that. But she used to give me these little tidbits and it would give me some knowledge and some education on, you know, like some people may be the way they are and you can't do anything about it. But other people can be, you know, a different race or whatever, and, you know, they'll still be okay. So, you know, raising biracial children, you know, I watched my son and I heard my youngest son, he wrote this thing about a conversation with Dr. Martin Luther King. And in that phrase that he wrote in there about when he went to school, the kids used to call him chocolate milk and all kinds of different things, but he still had a variety of friends, different races, different. I would always tell them that, again, I would go back to what my grandmother used to tell me: if you play with dirt, you get dirty. It doesn't matter the race. It doesn't matter the creed, the religion, the lack of religion. It matters in your soul and in your spirit who you are. You know, so, and I tried to teach them, you know, my son and my daughter, that you're going to have this. You know, we see it happening right now. We've seen it happen for over 400 years. You're going to see it. It's going to happen, but we don't have to live the way others live. So we have to change our mindset. We have to get spiritually connected and spiritually correct so that we live the way that God teaches us to live. You know, so I'm hoping that, you know, the knowledge that I have, I can pass on even to my grandchildren and to other children, that we don't have to live the way others live or choose to live. We can make a difference. So thanks for calling on me again. I appreciate it.
I'll chime in as well. Having my oldest daughter, the most significant and closest person in life being her grandmother, Caucasian, she was being raised and rendered in a way not seeing white or black, but in the reality of the world,
you have to turn yourself off.
Yeah, that's all we see. But you know, one thing I learned in stepping in and being her father, we lived in a very racially driven neighborhood. To be nice, I'll say that. I'll call it what it is. It's one of the most racist cities in the United States, really, Pennsylvania. And my daughter going to that elementary school, she saw racism every day she was there. And the interesting thing about it, it didn't start out coming from the children. It was coming from the parents. So I at the time was traveling So mostly her mother dealt with going to the school and dealing with them, and she felt the racism. That's the first time that, well, it's not the first time she felt understanding that she was Black. But for my daughter Ava, the first time she's feeling the difference, and this is elementary school. We wanted to go over and play with the kids in the park. Parents wouldn't invite us to participate in that. In school, the secretary at the school had said some vicious things about Ava staying at an after-school program because it was for this certain group. So it was one of those things when I had enough, and for all you brothers who know me, there's only so much I'm going to take before it's going to be a serious problem. So I pulled her from the school. And then I take her into a school where my father actually works at. And we thinking this was going to be a better environment. She's around Black students. So now she's dealing with a different type of discrimination. Now you're dealing with the fact of being this light-skinned child, or the boys, some of the boys like you, so the girls are mistreating you in a way. You have a different type of hair than most people. So she's been catching hell from every aspect. And I truly, with all of the knowledge and the teachings I've had in my life, I don't know if I'll ever be able to navigate this for her. I'm out of my league when it comes to that conversation. I just don't know how to make it better, because as of right now, and she doesn't feel comfortable with either side of her bloodline. And that is, hurtful for me, because this is the first thing that I can't make better. I don't know how to fix this for her. You would think, or my perspective, she would be comfortable around Black people, but Black people are treating her just as bad as she's been treated by white people. So is to me, it's more difficult for biracial or multiracial children to navigate through this world, and I just don't have the answer. So if anybody could chime in and add to what me and Mr. Terry was talking about, I'd be grateful, because I have no idea where to go with that.
Let me just say this, Nadir, particularly to Ava, and the schooling that she's receiving from the current school that she was at. Certainly there's a big problem because in the environment that she's in, it's really a serious toxic environment where the children have no direction and no guidance. Therefore, education is lacking. Ava would thrive in a place where there's just education is the root, not the problems that exist amongst children. And I think that, I don't know what transpired in the school and language, but she's a very bright child. She's very talkative, and she's eager to learn. But in an environment like Chester in particular, and the kind of drama that comes, that has happened between male-female relationships and children seeing so much devastation, that when they come to school, they bring that same type of mannerisms with them. And that's what Ava had to face with. I don't necessarily know that it's a racial situation, but it's more the kind of abuse that the children receive at home and in their environment. And they see somebody different, and they take that same situation out on her. So in my opinion, the solution would be to put her in an educational environment, regardless of the background of the students that are there. And I think that she would thrive much better in that type of environment.
And only thing I would add to that, Nadir, is one of my mantras in fatherhood is whatever I can protect my kids from, I prepare them for. Right? Because there's going to be plenty of things in life, whether it's racism, whether it's anything, alcoholism, drug, anything, hatred that your kids will be exposed to. and this is just one of the things. And so my deal is, if I can't protect them from it, I got to prepare them for it. And so I got to have the conversations, you know, so they're not hearing it or seeing it first in the world where it's already skewed and out of.
Oh, you froze.
Out of whack. You know, I want them to get it, have them. It's not going to make it feel, but at least then it says, I was exposed to it. Now we can have that discussion.
Yeah, I agree. You know, the main thing, it's really going to be about continue to working on her, building her self-esteem, because when you continue working on building her self-esteem and having her be able to be comfortable in her own skin, you know, that's going to help continue to help her be able to adjust in whatever environment she's in. You know what I mean? So I know you guys are already doing that, you know, because and, you know, you're going to have to be answering those questions. The older she gets, the more aware she is going to be. So prepping is going to be important, but making sure that self-esteem, you know, especially for young women, that's the most important thing that you can be able to continue to teach her.
Also, I'm glad you chimed in, because I was about to ask you this question from a psychological standpoint. How can we create balance of culture between the multiple races as well? And also, how do we prepare the child to face the world and its views?
So the main thing I always let individuals know is just about knowledge, you know. So making sure that she's knowledgeable, or just a biracial individual is knowledgeable about all facets of their background, you know, because, you know, when you try to stifle one, because I talk with a lot of biracial kids as well, and, you know, they're very familiar on one part, but they're not familiar at all on the other, and what that does, that creates that self-esteem, that lower self-esteem, because when somebody asks, you know, about, you know, the other side, like, there's not that much information about it. And so what happens is it you know, sometimes some people go and try to research that, but if they don't have that guidance, it can be researched in the wrong type of manner. So about having that balance is just having that background information for them, and just being, especially, you know, when they're getting older, understanding those truths, like, listen, you know, you're this and you are this. Sometimes people, you know, there are going to be people that's just going to see you as just black. You know what I mean, as this, you know, but, you know, this is your heritage, this is who you are, and you continue to just instill in them that no matter what, you are a beautiful, you know, you're a beautiful, smart, intelligent, you know, woman, you know, young girl, you know, this person, like, and you continue to build that up, and in addition to providing that information. And that's going to be the helpful portion, because when you yourself as a parent give knowledge to your kids, you know, they take on that, you know, a lot. It resonates a lot, very differently. You know what I mean? So, you know, always have her know, or always have the biracial, you know, kid know about where they came from, because the hardest part is feeling lost. Mm-hmm. When you feel lost, that's when you feel alone, and feeling alone is the key portions of depression, when you feel isolated and things like that. So when I would see kids around, like, you know, 13, 14, and then I taught that, and they're in that type of limbo, that they're reaching that, what we call that identity phase, that stage of development where they're trying to find who they are. And if they don't have that knowledge, or you know, around that age, they're not going to really try to seek out, you know, from their parents, you know, that question, you know what I mean? So if they don't have that knowledge, again, they just feel much more alone. So if you're providing that to them, as you know, in different stages of their lives, that's going to help them. That's going to help them with that development.
Yeah, I think one question for you then, bro, Alphonso, is, it's not, sometimes I get the biracial part. The harder part is more the economic piece, because especially within our community, many of us are trying to raising young black men and black children in the suburbs, which is a much different experience in the inner city. Many of us have fought hard to get out of that inner city and not expose our children to that.
Yeah.
Yet we also know, when we met a kid from the suburbs who looked like us and didn't resonate with the inner city experience, they were called a sellout and everything else. And yet I'm raising that child, you know, who may get treated that way. And so, you know, would welcome your advice from that perspective as well, because that is a much different piece than even the culture part, because they, at some point, those worlds will clash and collide.
Yeah.
And so how do you start to instill that? So
I totally agree. I mean, I'm out here in the suburbs of the suburbs. I'm in, near Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, Collegeville, all that. So
you are in the suburbs.
so I'm out there.
There's some cows and stuff out there.
I'm out there. So yeah, but and that's the hardest part about, trying to, because the main thing is making sure that, your kid is in a safe environment, but then you place them in an environment where they may not feel fully safe because they are a different culture. So again, it does go back to, it's a couple of things. It goes back to, that knowledge given inside the house about, because they're not gonna in that school, they're not gonna teach them about, Black history about, in the ways that we can. So it's providing that knowledge in that aspect, but also, have them go visit, certain portions of the hood. You know what I mean? Don't have them so far off that they cannot like move in different places. Like, you want, the most dangerous thing is an educated Black man, because we can be able to go in any type of environment and still be good.
Right. And adjust. Right.
And adjust. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that we're going to have our kids be able to know those different routes, with being inside, inside of Philly. You know what I mean? Or being inside the country, or being wherever. So it's going to be a lot of talk. Make sure that your kids are okay with asking you these questions. Because the kids are going to have these questions, especially when they're reaching the ages between, like, from fourth grade. 4th grade, 7th grade is one of the big ones, and 10th grade is those are really big milestones just for development. Because that's your executive functioning. That's your decision making. So that it keeps on developing up until 26 for guys, 24 for girls. But like those milestones where they're trying to be more aware. You know what I mean? So it's about having them have that safe place to be able to ask those questions, because parents are life teachers. You got to always assume that you're especially for a Black kid in a white community, you got to always assume that those white teachers are not going to teach him, how he needs to be taught, he or she needs to be taught. So it's about having that other type of education as well, and letting them know, like, listen, Billy, you can be friends with Billy, but don't be doing what Billy does, especially with talking back to me. I'm not Billy's parents. You're not, because again, sometimes it just, even like with discipline, I know we're going to talk about that, like with discipline and just culture wise, they try to mimic some of their Caucasian, but just other situations. And so it's about the strength of that household, and just know that it goes back to that self-esteem. They don't have to feel ashamed for being in a higher socioeconomic place. You know what I mean? You can be cool like him. You can be good with whoever. You know what I mean? But you just do not feel ashamed about not being in the hood, or not being any place. Like, be okay with yourself. And so that's why I always push for self-esteem, self-worth, whatever you can do to help build that up for your kid. That's going to help them be able to adjust. Let them fail. When failing helps the kids be able to adjust. That, again, that's some of the advice I would give.
I was just going to chime in here and say, it kind of really doesn't matter if you 100% Black, half Black, whatever it is. It's something. If you rise through the ranks and you become whatever of X company, then it becomes about class. You know what I mean? Like, so you never really win. And the reality is you deal with it all your life, as a kid, as an adult, as an adolescent. I mean, it just, even as a damn geriatric, you go into certain senior care centers and they treat you different. You know what I'm saying? So this thing it's a marathon, man. It doesn't stop. The question I was going to ask you, though, Nidir, is because you talked about how you switch schools for your daughter. Did you see any change did you sacrifice a certain level of education for that, or noticed any differences?
was a huge difference. Well, the first difference that we would notice was in Ava's willingness to learn. At least in the other school, the racism was blatant, but it wasn't volatile. So her being in the white school, she could feel the difference, the way she'd be treated. She'd come home saying, "Oh, I don't have friends." And we felt it harder as adults. Of course, like I said, Tanika felt it the most because she was on the ground. I had to go up there several times and straighten people out. But the educational development was a lot easier. Ava was learning faster. I seen the demise in that in the transition to the other school, and the only thing I could say would be the difference was fear. There's one thing to be discriminated against; it's another thing to be bullied, and that's what she felt in the black school that didn't necessarily happen yet in the white school. She wasn't being bullied yet, but in the black school, you know, a kid threw set. Like I was up there literally once or twice a week. My father would bear witness to this, ready to chop heads off. She got scissors thrown at her by a male student. She got clotheslined by a male student. A female student slammed her head on the wall. It got so crazy that I almost went back into a different form of my life. and that's where I saw the difference. But I also know for a fact, Conrad, that the educational opportunities are skewed. There was more of an updated learning situation in Ridley than it was at the school in Chester. And that's not the children's fault. That is a failed educational system for Black children. You know, and I don't want to get on a soapbox, but we already know that the education we're being given anyway isn't conducive for the growth of a Black child, because we're not even learning about ourselves, but multiply that by not having up-to-date textbooks, not having up-to-date technology that other students are using, not having up-to-date resources. When I put her in the school, my father sold me on the school because I thought it was a arts and a culturally sound school. It was within the arts. All that funding went within the first 3 months that she was at the school, and now they changed the name of the school to a learning academy, which it isn't. So that's just the great lie that they say today, that we're in this country equal, and we're not. We're in this country integrated, and we're not. We're still separated. They just found a different way to separate us. So there was a huge difference there in the educational structure, and that's why for everybody watching, why do you think that Black people get more education and more money and move out of our communities? Because the community isn't conducive for the growth. Now, yes, you could raise the point that we could come back and make it better, and those things take time. Now, as a father, am I willing to risk my child education in life while the community takes its time to grow? I don't think anybody on this phone or anybody watching will say they're willing to sacrifice their child for that. So I hope that answered the question.
I piggyback off of that. Now, then when you talk about the school districts and really, you know, my family basically, my children went to the really school districts. So a lot of the racism that you speak of, you know, I'm privy to. And I know, like, my two older daughters, when they were at really school, they experienced some, like my children experienced things that I never had to experience. Growing up in Chester, obviously, it was basically no white kids in the school district. To have my children in the school district where, like, for up to like 5th grade, each one of my daughters were like the only African American student in their class. So for my daughters, I don't want to say it wasn't too hard. They would come home sometime and talk about, you know, being different, the hairstyles and stuff like that, or the complexion of their skin, and, you know, how we was raised about our culture, pro-Black, and all of those things. So I always would get them books. That was my way of them, because me telling them it was hard because it wasn't my experience. So I started looking into getting them books like Skin Like Mine, like little books about girls doing their hair and their hair being different and still fitting in school. And the thing that I did that I think that was most helpful for me and beneficial to my household was I volunteered big time in the school system. So I was like a very, very active parent. I mean, I volunteered for all of the school trips that they had. They had like the summer camps or the spring camp that you had to go away for 3 to 4 days. I made sure I was a part of those programs. All of the what do you call them? The meetings, you know, the meetings with the teachers. Like, so I was present. So if that energy that might have been festering in the school about my daughters, I wouldn't let that narrative, you know, take hold. I was an active father, so it came to the point where I remember one time I disciplined my son, and I saw that was a question on there, and I disciplined my son, and I put some whelps on his legs, you know, whooped on him, and he went to school, and the next day, the principal called me. Well, my ex called me at home and was like, they talking about they not letting Nas go, like. And I'm like, what do you mean they not letting Nas go? They said, you abused him, you beat him. And I'm like, who, the school? And then she was like, yeah, the principal called and said because he had whelps on his legs, they had to call Children Youth Services and all this foolishness, right? Oh man, it was crazy. So I'm like, well, go get my son. Like, nobody can tell me I'm not getting my child. So long story short, just like you, I went straight up to the school, and they're like, well, I'm like, no, we're not gonna do anything. You're gonna give me my son. That's the first thing you're gonna do. You know, I'll meet with whatever officers I have to meet with. So they gave me my son, but the one thing that impressed me was the principal at the time. Obviously, he was a white man, and they pulled me in the room, and he said, man, my son he's the middle child, so he has 2 older sisters. That one was already in 6th grade, the one was in 8th, one probably was in 7th grade, and now my son was like in 4th grade at the time. And the principal remembered the relationship in the that I had with the school with my older 2 children. And he pulled me in the office and he said all he was doing was following protocol. He said once they found out that my son had whelps on his legs, he had to make the phone call. But he said he also let them know what type of man I was, what type of father I was, and that, you know, he doubted very seriously that some type of child abuse was taking place. So that right there for me was very humbling, for number one. And then number two, you know, he was my elder, he was older than me, he still was able to give me some jewels. And he was like, listen, man, my dad disciplined me too as a young man. He was like, we living in a different time. He was like, listen, if you gotta hit him, you know, make sure you just don't leave no marks on him, man. And at the end of the day, that was honestly like the last time I ever really put my hands on my son. But it also showed me, man, that, you know, it's on our duties as fathers, man, to be like heavily involved in like every aspect of our children's lives, man. And for me telling you, like you just was talking about us getting out of that, the inner city and those environments, man, where we can provide a better situation for our families. I would just suggest that you take a different approach, man, because you in a better school district, man. You see your cousins, man, my older daughters, how they've prospered, man, being schooled in that school district. And there's so many benefits that come with being out there, man. And you can't let something I don't want to say something, you can't let that be the reason why you tuck and take your child out of the school system that will benefit her over the one she's in now. And you know that based on what you stated. So you got to hold them accountable, them meaning the teachers, whomever that creates that environment for your daughters to be able to learn, man. I mean, it's our duty to do that. And it's resources out there for us, man, to make sure, like you said, it's an experience that you didn't have to deal with based off you not being biracial. I came in a school system that was all Black, so it's ways around it, bro. Like, it's ways around it. So I think that would be something I would suggest that you rethink it and go on with a different plan if you still live out in that area, in that school district. Because now I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I got 2 younger, and this is a whole nother level different than Brittany. Because Cherry Hill is, I mean, it's a different type of money. When y'all talk about an economic thing, really for me wasn't really economics. Out here in Cherry Hill, man, you pull up in the high school parking lot. I mean, these kids are driving cars, man. Listen, I mean, these kids, they sitting on something, but the same rules apply that applied in Ridley, they apply out here. Us being involved and making sure my kids are getting a fair shake of the educational system. All the other stuff, man, comes with being a parent. Everything else that like even us growing up in Chester as African Americans around our same peers, it was a class thing then. It was a class thing about how good your sneaks looks, or you know how many different times you had to switch your jeans out during the week. So it's still levels to it. It's levels to it. So even in that sense, you know, you had kids that were hooky school and wouldn't come to school because they couldn't face, you know, the ridicule that came with not, you know, being fly, so to speak. So, you know, we just got to find a way to ease the load on our children, man, instead of just taking them out of situations, you know.
I know our brother Alphonso has to go, and please tell your queen. I got one more question on the one tour, but please tell her thank you so much for allowing us to take up this special day for you. Again, happy anniversary to you and your queen, brother Alphonso. On the way out, what do you see is the biggest problems facing the Black community when it comes to fatherhood?
I think the biggest problem right now, I would say is image. The thing is, I think the media portrays Black fathers as, again, you know, the old school being, you know, deadbeats and things like that. But I see a lot of just young, you know, Black men being more involved in their children's lives. And what happens is, you know, when an individual, when people assume something about you, there's this thing called self-fulfilling prophecy. So if the baby moms are saying he ain't shit, then the friends are saying he ain't shit, like all these people saying he ain't shit, he's like, well, if I ain't shit, then well, I don't forget, I ain't shit. So that's actually like a psychological term, you know, when it's called the Pagarian effect or so. And that's just when, again, the environment sees you as, you know, something, and they expect something from you, then you're more likely to do so. So it's about, you know, trying to break that stigma to be able to be a better father. Because again, in the mindset, you know, because I know I'm going to segue into the court system, like in the mindset when, you know, child support, going to court, always a lot of times in favor of the baby moms, because people always just assume that the dad's deadbeat, the dad ain't shit. So it's always a negative connotation. So that's the hardest part in the Black community, is that stigma for a Black man of not being shit. You know, there are some people that ain't shit, but there's people that ain't shit in all races. You know what I mean? But it's just magnified as Black people. So it's the individuals, like the men, like the individual on this call, who are, you know, doing above and beyond. You know, they're the ones that is going to help break that stigma. You know what I mean? And that's I believe there's gonna be a big shift. But there's still that presence, that immediate presence of a Black man. You know, just again that negativity. But I do. My girl's been, my wife's been calling me like 3 or 4 times. I see you guys.
Congratulations,
You guys are amazing. We gotta do this again.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Happy anniversary, brother.
Happy anniversary, brother. All right, brothers. I know I kept y'all over time. Thank y'all, brothers, so much. With him saying we gotta do this again, I don't want to just be a blind statement. I would love to continue, because there's so many topics and questions that people sent in that we need to face. And I got my core group of brothers that I think that we can really build on and help bridge a gap between our Black fathers and mothers, as well as bridge a gap between fathers who have been absentee and might want to come back into their children's lives and they don't know how, as well as men who are potentially going to become fathers soon or in the future. I think this is a core group of brothers that can make this really work. So can I get everybody to commit? I know I'm putting y'all on the spot. I want to do a part 2. I'm actually airing this on Father's Day. That's why I'm releasing this episode, but I want to follow up in the future with a part 2 and maybe a part 3, and start this roundtable discussion against, you know, good black fathers, so we can help bridge this gap and help heal our community. Can I get you guys commit to doing this again?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah, got you. And Nidir, thanks for pulling this together, man. I think it's important. I think this conversation needs to be happening in small groups, and I think that's how we kind of change the narrative of our race of Black fathers. In addition to that, I don't think I heard anybody say this. Happy Father's Day to all you brothers, and I hope y'all have a fantastic day with your little ones, man.
Appreciate that, bro.
All right, you too, good brother.
All right, thank you all. So I'll be checking with y'all soon. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, by the way, Ishmael, you remind me of Omar from The Wire.
I hear it all the time, good brother. I'll be on the train, man. They be like, you look like Michael. I forgot his last name. I don't know who you talking about. They like, Omar. I'm like, I know who you talking about. All right, bro.
All right, my brothers. Thank you.
All right, brothers.
All right, y'all. Nice hearing from you. Take care.
All right, peace.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on this special Father's Day episode of Sacrifice Thing of Ours. We will be airing this on Father's Day, so I'm saying it now, but you'll actually be hearing me say this again on Father's Day. And our brothers were gracious enough to come on and do this with me. I humbly thank them all for giving us their time, and they've committed to do this again in the near future. So make sure you all tune into this episode, have these conversations at home, discuss things. If you have any rebuttals, please drop messages in the comments, like and subscribe on YouTube. And for all of my Instagram followers and fans who are going to see this, and Facebook followers who will see this as well, please leave comments, and let's have a dialogue and a discussion on everything we discussed today. And again, in the future, we'll be adding more onto to this when we get our brothers back on. Again, all these men have had beautiful impacts in my life, and that's why I had them on the show, because I respect them and love them dearly. And thank you to our special guest, Brother Alphonso Nathan, who is a specialist in this, and he really helped bring things full circle for us all. So we're going to have him back on again. So I thank you guys again. This is episode 4. I'll be dropping Father's Day, and look forward to other episodes in the future. This is your boy Status, Sacrifice for this Thing of Ours.